we're going to have another panel now about accelerators, but from the accelerators' point of view. Not from what the startups need, but what lessons the people running accelerators have learned throughout their experience. I wish there were a few people in the room that took place, that were part of accelerators. Can you please raise your hands again? Do you mind coming closer? Please. Because I really want you to pay attention and ask questions in the end. Okay, thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not that many. How many of you want to go to an accelerator? 1, 2, 3. Really? Okay. Well, maybe you'll change your mind after this panel. Okay, so I would like to invite on stage Marc Wesselink. He's the Selection and Alumni Manager at Startupbootcamp Smart City and Living. Mark? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We lost Mark. Okay. Marvin Liao, venture partner of 500 Startups. He's here. Yay. Hi. Wherever you want, take your seat. And Paul Smith, investor, co-founder, and CEO at Ignite100 Campus North. And also our moderator, Ivan Brezak Brkan, founder and CEO of Netokracija.
I think he's dead.
And if someone can please find Mark, that would be great. Great. Okay. Should I stall or should we just get going? Okay, cool.
Thank you. We already lost one. Damn it. Guys, stay here.
Does Carlos want to come on? He could be a sub.
Yeah, why not? Go on, sit down.
We put two bald men next to each other?
Oh, you both look so good. Okay, so the topic of this panel, we're not going to pivot. Carlos is here, but we're not going to pivot. So the topic is basically from what makes a good accelerator, right? What you guys can accept from accelerator, what these guys have learned from their experience working with startups. So we're going to pick their brains and try to find the most valuable information. But first of all, if you could introduce yourselves shortly and... Oh, there we go.
I was drinking coffee.
You, Mark.
So, you're it.
Yay.
Okay. I immediately jump in. Okay.
Yeah. Just an introduction for the beginning.
So, I'm Marc Wesselink. I'm part of the Startup Bootcamp family. Founded Startup Bootcamp Smart City and Living and Startup Bootcamp Africa. But I also started 12 companies myself. Failed 4 times. Sold 2. Had 1 IPO. Had 2 bankruptcies. Survived cancer twice. Learned to walk 4 times. Thanks to 22 operations. Accelerated 50 companies after talking with more than 2,000 startups. So I know a little bit about starting up, literally.
That's all.
That's all.
My intro is going to be so boring. So it's Marvin. I run the San Francisco office for 500 Startups. 500 Startups is a global venture capital firm. We also are probably a fairly worldwide renowned accelerator program. So we run a batch every single quarter. It's about 30 companies, and we basically cut that down from roughly about 1,300 to about 1,000 applications every single batch. And so what else? We have about 900 investments, and probably out of those, we've graduated about 250 companies out of our accelerator program.
Cool. I've got wire. I'm good. I'm Paul. Hello. I'm one of the co-founders of Ignite. And Ignite is a pre-seed accelerator. We're now into our 5th cohort. We're not based in London. We're based in Newcastle, which is one of the few cities in the UK that has a strong native tech industry. We're pretty good at what we do. So after Techstars and Seed Camp and Entrepreneur First, it's Ignite in the UK. My background is a failed astrophysicist. I did a thing called Twitch Hiker a few years ago. Agencies, radio, generally mucking about and not having a proper job since I was 20. And that's me.
Well, we just went through mine, so.
Oh, right. We know you. You're just. So a basic question to begin with. So of course you guys have your own pitches on why each accelerator is awesome and great. But so what, in your opinion, if you were choosing to go to an accelerator with your startup, what would be your criteria at what actually makes a good accelerator in the end? What's the thing that a startup should expect to receive, and also the criteria to choose an accelerator with?
I can start with that.
Sure.
Last week, I published a post on Medium, and it was called the Accelerator Manifesto. And it's basically a selection of criteria to help teams ask the right questions and do due diligence on accelerators. But it's also for accelerators to take a look at and ask themselves questions about whether they're truly providing value and truly founder-friendly. So I'd always ask startups to first ask themselves if they need an accelerator. Not everyone does. I'd ask them to do due diligence on the accelerator. So accelerators can't give you specific details about the amount of money specific teams has raised because they may not want to divulge that, but they should be able to give you some top-line figures. They should be able to tell you how many startups are dead, and how many are still trading, and how much money they've raised. And they should be able to give you a fairly clear offer in fairly clear terms, and they should be able to present a list of mentors who actually engage in the program. There's a lot of programs that like putting up headshots of some very clever people who actually do nothing for the accelerator and haven't done so for years, but it looks good on them. So it's due diligence. We've got 2 Romanian teams in the current batch. One of them had the choice of 2 accelerators. They went to 15 of our alumni in the space of 3 days and talked to them all. And that's the kind of thing you need to do. It's a big decision. So just do your homework on them before you make a choice.
Agree. Because at the end, we have a Dutch saying, wij van WC Eend raden u WC Eend aan. And that's a little bit similar as, okay, Unilever will advise you to buy Unilever products. Ask alumni, that's the only way you get an honest feedback. So let the accelerator tell. Bullshit, ask alumni.
Okay, so don't read their websites, ask their alumni.
So one of the things about alumni that's important, and actually Marvin and 500, Marvin and us have done several investments together. And one of the things that always consistently comes up is the quality of the people that are in the program helping each other out. Not just the people who run it, but I'm talking about successful founders that are later in their life of their company become such an important guide for the younger companies. And so one of the great things is finding a program where you admire some of the older companies, because they will be the foundation for a lot of the learnings that you will get as well.
I have very little to add to that. It's pretty much all the same. And also really understanding, there's certain accelerator programs that are very good at like earlier stage, like we tend to be a lot later stage accelerator program. So I remember last batch, so the batch I just ran, batch 10, I think close to like 30% of the companies have actually been through another accelerator program before. So we focus a lot on, at least for us, we focus a lot on fundraising, and we focus a lot on customer acquisition, and that's actually very, very hard to do. So we find teams that have not rolled out a product don't do well in our program.
So to make work for you, sorry?
No, Ivan, I was just going to, you brought up a very good point, and I think you alluded to it earlier when you were talking about Entrepreneur First. I think there's something that's not apparent to everyone is that just like the venture capital community has evolved over the years for everything from different industry sectors and different verticals, it's also in terms of stages. And so, you look at the kinds of, that there's programs like Entrepreneur First, who's for people who are just graduating, really. And then you have like 500 and Seed Camp that are sort of in that sort of later stage and venturing on a seed fund. So like there's that whole gamut of programs, and that's something you should look at as well.
So to make your lives a bit easier when startups approach you from this crowd, what's the most common advice you give to most startups? What's the thing that maybe these guys should know before applying or entering any of your accelerators that you see that most of them forget, and you just keep saying it again and again, and for some reason startups don't take it into consideration, and maybe they should before entering your accelerators?
The first thing I always ask is, have you ever talked to your customer? I've learned that myself the hard way. I was one of the founders of Just Eat. It's an online delivery service, and everybody knows it already, but in 2002, nobody really gave a shit about online delivery. And now it's all over the place. But we went out there and we even had to convince restaurant owners that it's possible to send a pizza with an email. And they said, oh, okay, but how can I send a pizza through the internet? No, we will take care of that. You need only to take care of the delivering the pizza. And we understand how they were thinking. So we got feedback on how we communicate the service based on the feedback of them. So always start talking with your customer first before doing anything else.
Okay, so that's point one, maybe point two?
Point two is, I think that's of course most common for everybody. You need to have a real clear vision on which pain you are solving for both parties, yeah? Especially marketplaces like us. In this case, with Just Eat, so we needed to focus on which pain we were solving for a restaurant owner, but also the pain we were solving for a consumer. Yeah? Consumer said, I want to order pizza. Of course, they couldn't understand it. So we need to be clear on the communication on that, based on also the communication, the talking with both sides of the customers. So both ways. That's the two things you need to do. And of course, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can go on and on and on. But those are the two main things.
Marvin, maybe something along the line of business development, sales.
Well, I mean, we put a lot of focus on customer acquisition, right? So for us is we assume the product works fairly well. Maybe that's not a great assumption, but you assume the product works. For us, we care a lot about how you position your product, how you communicate. Customer acquisition is really, really important. So B2B, like how you think about enterprise or SMB, like how you understand your customers and go after them. From a B2C, it's just like how you use like a lot of the online channels. But I think even before this, of just assuming the company's at the stage that we're looking for, it's just like ultimately, what is your biggest problem right now? And are we the right program for this, right? Because if your biggest problem is product, we're probably not the best program, as an example, right? Maybe Y Combinator is a better, or Techstars. Do you need a lot more hand-holding? We may not be the best program for that, right? So I just think a lot of it's really understanding what their biggest challenge is. And this is actually the first question I ask in an interview. It's just like, besides finding out who they are and other things, the first question is like, what is your biggest problem? If your biggest problem is this thing, then yeah, we can definitely help you. If your biggest problem is this other piece, maybe you should look at something else. Because ultimately for us, it's about, the startups are our customers too in some ways, right? Even though we're investor and stuff, but they're a customer, and we want them to have a good experience and to come out being a much business that's like 10 times, 100 times better than them coming in, because then we get the good word of mouth, right? And they're going to refer other good companies to us. And so if there's not a good fit, we don't, even though we think that might be a very highly fundable company, I don't think it's a really good idea sometimes to take on the program, because they're just going to be disappointed, and then we're going to get the negative word of mouth. So that's something I think a lot about. Is there a fit, right?
Well,
two things. One, a very practical thing that if you're involved in the mentoring sessions tonight, or if you're coming up to meet these guys later, really simple thing, listen. The number of teams I met last night who seem to think the value is in them talking rather than listening. There is no value in you just talking at someone for 15 minutes then walking away. So listen when people talk to you. Doesn't mean that the advice is right. Just because we're sat telling you things doesn't mean you should go and do them. But pay attention and listen and ask questions, ask silly questions. So just get better at listening and just receiving feedback. The second thing, it's a really simple thing, is Radu here? You in the room? No, Alex. He's gone as well. Okay, I was going to point to some people and see if they remembered it. Number one, Not that Alex, another Alex. I need an Alex that's been on the program. I should have specified the Alex. Number one rule on the program, don't be a dick. It's a really simple thing. Don't be a dick to other founders. Don't be a dick to mentors. Don't be a dick to investors. Just be selfish about the right things. Be selfish about your business and what you want from it. Don't be selfish to people. I think Paul Graham...
Are you pointing them out as like dicks or like not, or the reverse?
I'm sorry?
Are you pointing them out as being dicks or not?
No, they've been on the program, and it's the first thing they're taught. Paul Graham said something about the best and brilliant people aren't mean, and the meanest people are rarely brilliant. It's absolutely true. I've never worked with someone who is an arsehole to other people and been wildly successful. They help each other. They're a family.
Did you want to say anything? No, I was going to, just on the team thing, it was around, just to keep things somewhat different, is the concept of cleaning out your skeletons within your team. So sometimes when teams come into a program, it's not clear, for example, if somebody's leaving or staying, or they're part-time, if they're coming on, how much equity they're going to be given, how much they're not, who owns intellectual property. All these kinds of things aren't necessarily like the thing that we most frequently say, but just so to say something that we haven't covered already, it's a lot of the things that can really kind of waste a lot of time early on is if you have a founder who's not committed and is going to leave, and then what do you do with that equity? How does you park that? And all that stuff can be huge emotional and sort of money time drain.
As far as the wasting time issue, do you find that teams that enter your program sometimes obviously waste time with things they shouldn't be doing? And is there something that you should advise them, like as a general rule of thumb for teams, okay, when you exit Accelerator, how to use your time, the mentor's time, in the best possible way?
Yes, of course. You see that a lot, especially in the beginning, that people always amaze me. Then you see 5 people working on a table, doing lots of stuff, but a lot of stuff with nothing or unvalidated. Yeah. So
what would be nothing?
We always say stop with everything you do. Start listening. Exactly what Paul says. Listening to input. Yeah. Don't start immediately after a mentor says you go to the right. Yeah, so collect all those advices. I always say we are in the balloon blowing business. So you get, each mentor gives you a balloon of a color, and at the end of all the feedback, you look up in the sky and you see, okay, I have about 48 blue balloons. Probably blue is the best color. Yeah, and then after that you start building again, because everybody is doing everything, but in the wrong way many times.
I mean, the biggest thing is, like, wasting time is, one of the first things we tell our teams, like, have very, very clear goals about what, for us it's a 14 to 16 week program. So it's like, have very clear goals of what you want to accomplish and then sort of work backwards, right? And because it goes by very, very quickly. And so you want to make sure you're not wasting time in working on stuff that is actually not, doesn't drive you toward that goal. And that seems very basic. And that's actually part of the reason we actually meet with our teams at least once a week, right? To go and like, okay, so you said you want to get this thing done, like what have you actually done? And if you aren't doing this, why are you not doing this, right? And so it's kind of a bit of like your job as sort of running the programs to help advise them and hopefully push them sometimes. But ultimately it's their company, so there's only so much you can really do, but you do try to help them, because it just goes by very quickly, and it is a big challenge.
So a couple of things. One is, and two things that are nothing to do with Accelerators, just good practice as far as the teams we've worked with in the past are concerned. One is, we work with really early stage teams, measure everything from the start. However you do it, measure it all. Teams, startups normally have one key metric, which once you figure out what it is, determines how everything else in the business works. At the start, you don't necessarily know it. So measure everything. And if you measure it, at some point, you'll figure out what's important, and then you've got historical data. So you can go back and look at correlation and look how it's worked in the past. Second thing on mentors. As you meet mentors, follow up with them. So start creating a mailing list and update mentors, investors, potential partners on a really regular basis. Keep them nice and short. You don't need 2,000 words. It should be 200 words. And it's a regular update. How are you doing? What are your key metrics? How have they gone up or down? What help do you need? Start doing that religiously. Put it in the calendar, recur it, do it every week, every 2 weeks, or every month, depending what stage you're at. But get the most out of those people you meet.
So when you look at the time frame it takes to raise a follow-on round, it's not something that is quick, and it's not something you can just turn on like that. And it's not so much what you're wasting your time on that you should stop. It's just sometimes you're doing so many things that you lose touch with the fact that there's a relationship that you need to build to hire somebody, that you need to build to identify the right investors, and then close out a syndicate if that's the way that you're going to run this. And so companies sometimes can also be focusing too much on certain key things and lose track of the fact that you need to build relationships from the moment that you come into an investment from a program, so that by the time you need to raise your next round, after you've shown the KPIs that you need to show, or the growth in the product, or anything like that, that you have those right relationships to trigger the fundraising process.
What would that mean in practice? Is it updating a potential mentor that's also an investor?
It's mentors, it's going out to networking events, it's going to meetups, it's going to dev hacks, or anything where either if it's employees, it's going to the right areas where those employees hang out, or if it's in conferences or in local meetups where investors might be coming.
Just to follow on from that, meetups, events like this are brilliant, but they're also potentially the biggest waste of time. If you just turn up for the sake of turning up because it's a cool thing to do and it means you're someone, waste of time. How many people in the room went through the speaker schedule and worked out who they needed to talk to, maybe contacted them, asked for a meeting? The best startups, the best founders we work with, and this probably goes for everyone here, is so ahead of that. If they're going somewhere, they know why they're there, and they're looking to get a return on investment. They spend £500 coming here, they want some money back out of it, and they're going to work out who to talk to, arrange a meeting, and just get the most out of that experience.
Okay, so we have 5 more minutes. So
5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 more.
Wow.
Just that.
That's great.
So any questions for, okay, first row? Okay, last row first, if it's, yeah.
Hi. So my question is you guys definitely have some experience, some of you have an experience working with companies, startup companies from Eastern Europe. So my question is, what's your main takeaway, and I guess an advice on hardships, how to overcome those for companies from Eastern Europe, if there are some patterns that occur? Thank you.
So, look, we are about 1/3 to maybe even 40% of our investments are Eastern European. So I'm just aggregating the region a little bit. And we have some investments, some Romanian investments, for example, as some of you guys might know. We also have Croatian, Serbian, etc. And there's pros and cons, right? One of the pros is that there's a lot of great technical talent here, and that can become a great foundation for a dev team. But you're going to have to consider moving to either Western Europe or the US as part of your expansion strategy. And so pretty much all the companies that we work with is around that trajectory, bridging from a core basis here and then setting up the company in the right jurisdiction for it to be easier to fundraise later and also to hire, and then scale it up, whether it be in Western Europe or in the US. And that's the kind of recurring theme, and leveraging the core talent that's in the region.
Second question, right? Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
What are the top three mistakes that startups usually make when they apply for your accelerators?
Too early. That's one. They did a proper research whether we were able to help them. Yeah. So, for instance, if you go to a Dutch program in Amsterdam, are your users, which you want to validate with, are they also in the Netherlands? Yeah. Somebody came up with something which was already done ages ago in the Netherlands, so it was not a fit. And thirdly, I can't think of a third one. Maybe my neighbor knows a third one.
I mean, I think the first two, I generally speaking agree. I can't think of a third one, actually. Those are pretty much it.
So, I think one of the biggest things is that if you're telling me that you've made a beautiful product and that you put a lot of attention to detail in your product, and your application does not reflect that same commitment to quality that you're telling me that you do, then it falls short of consistency. And that means in you taking the time to fill out, competitor dynamics, or who's a substitute product, or which channels you think you're going to be considering, or what's the pricing mechanism that you're going to have. So it's not necessarily sometimes about specific questions that you didn't answer. It's about thinking about what you're representing, how you're positioning yourself, and having that be comprehensive.
A couple of things. I think we're a little different. There's no such thing as really as too early for us. We kind of look at everything. We just want smart people. So that's what we look for. So two things on that is, one is we're all very approachable, accessible people. If you've got a chance, go and talk to the accelerator before you apply. So many have the opportunity and they never do it. It helps you out because then we've got visibility of you, and it helps us out because we then understand a bit about you and can talk to you beforehand. The most important thing, I think, is to realize that the application to an accelerator, it's not about the right answers. That's not what we're looking for. It's not a test. We don't grade it. What we're looking for is your working out. We want to see how you approach the problem and if you're thinking about the right kind of things. It's not about having the right answer, because otherwise, why would you be coming to us?
That and for us is really important, is actually recommendations from the alumni. So for us, we value, for example, there's a company that's coming to our program now, and you get like 4 or 5 people in our family, the 500 family, going and say, these guys are awesome and you need to talk with them. We will definitely be taking apart that application and looking at it.
That's a really good point. I think it's probably similar for these guys, but probably 70 or 80% of all the teams joining us are referrals. We get maybe 2 or 3 out of 10 teams from the application process. Everything is alumni, it's our new venture partners, it's mentors, it's investors.
Cool. Okay, we're done. Anka?
Hello, my name is Anka. I'm the founder of Sea Changers, and I have a question. There are probably over 200 accelerators in Europe right now, and it's getting very difficult for startups to apply. What are you guys doing to protect the segment of the industry that you're in? And how can you make it easier for startups to select what accelerator to apply to, besides referrals?
A couple of things. One is, actually, there's a lot of things called accelerators that aren't. So have a look at that.
Thank you.
Some of them are co-working spaces, some of them are grants, and some of them are incubators, very different things. For us, the way we protect ourselves, if that's a thing, is we just do the best by the teams, the best by the founders. If we get that right, reputation will work for us and it'll help us. If you start screwing people over, and some accelerators do, there are a lot of bad accelerators. If you get it right for the teams, we don't have to do anything else. People will talk to you.
So what would be your advice to startups when they are researching accelerators?
I mean, it's all the stuff we said before, right? Do your homework, look beyond just a website, talk to alumni of companies, right? You can tell very, very quickly what's a good program, what's a bad program, because a lot of people, I'll give you an example. We had a bunch of Canadian companies come to our program, and boy, they came out of another accelerator program. They were very negative on it. I'm not gonna say which name it is, and that's something that comes up over and over again. Same thing with programs that are actually very, very good, of just the reputation precedes them, and that actually do the homework, talk to alumni.
So as a rule, startups should not apply to first-time accelerators?
It's difficult to know, unless you know the reputation of the people behind them. Accelerators are really hard to get right and really easy to get wrong.
Because if a new accelerator is being managed by really experienced guys, that's not a problem, of course. But
so research the people behind it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. The team, not only the team of a startup makes a difference, but also the team of an accelerator makes a difference, of course.
Not to keep pushing it for page views, but genuinely, if you just Google now Accelerator Manifesto and just have a look, and it's just basic stuff. It's all common sense stuff, and no one's going to read it and think this is extraordinary. But it's the basic stuff that startups don't do, and it's a lot of stuff that accelerators get wrong, and it's ways and means of doing that due diligence before you look at them.
Thank you.
And we're up. Thank you very much for my guests. Please, a big applause.
Thank you, guys.